Well, happy Sunday, SMITE fans. You are watching the North American SEC. We got the SPL a little bit later on for you, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. My name is Dolson. Gormizer is with me, and we got a great matchup today, Gore. We were discussing pregame who's going to take this one. We're not sure. It's Elevate versus your best buds here in the North American SEC.
Yeah, and a lot, I think, to prove for these teams coming forward. A couple of new teams, not only in Europe, but I know coming in here for North America as well. So it's causing a little bit of a mix-up. Of course, I think some of these players have shifted themselves around as well. And looking through them, just at the base, the roster for your best buds, having Aquarius, Crimson, Andonser, Gamma, and Griff, a bunch of players who have either been subs or have played in the Pro League in the past. A lot of good history, I think, behind them. So I think they're a team that really does have a lot to put forward today. And so I'm excited to see what they're going to be able to bring.
Sure, and then their opponents in Elevate, Ranjaru, Shia, Blugan, Spreen, Heed, that whole squad. So definitely some name recognition there. But with that being said, Gore, these are two teams I think a lot of people would be familiar with. Do you give your edge to your best buds going into this set?
Honestly, I think the edge, like you said, goes over to them, but it is the question of whether or not that necessarily means much coming into it, right? Like, yeah, you've got this name recognition, but we've seen that falter in the past. We've seen that it maybe not stand up to where it is. It is all going to be team synergy. That being said, I think they have it. They've played together before in the past as well, so I'm excited to watch it. Of course, and maybe this is just me memeing, but Elevate have the higher number of repetitive letters throughout their names. So I think that does give them a competitive edge.
That's
3
true.
Eads and Heed and Spreen, 4 A's there for Shia, or maybe 5 because I miscounted. So he has an extra one there. I think there's some power to it.
Yeah, and your best buds only has Gamma with the back-to-back M's. So, not only is it not even close, or not only does Elevate have more gourds, it's not particularly close. We'll have to see how that plays out. I know Bellini and Lala are ready to get picks and bans going. I see him back there enjoying some snacks. So let's jump in to P's and B's for game number 1. Between these two teams, Freya and Nemesis, no surprise there, banned out by your best buds. Cthulhu and Persephone off on the opposite side. Yamoja to follow up. So Gorbizer through the first 5 here, and I imagine now 6. Both of these teams sticking largely to the script. Outquang maybe a little bit off script, actually, as I point that out. So the one band that sticks out, I think, Gormizer here, is the Outquang.
And it's the weird one because yesterday we saw it in the Challenger Circuit, did okay. Johnny made it look fine. We saw it in the Pro League, didn't look okay and do that fine. So I'm wondering where it falls in the grand scheme of things. Both of them had vastly different builds, though. We saw a little bit more protection-oriented and kind of safety when it was in the Pro League versus when we saw Johnny playing it yesterday in the Challenger Circuit. He just kind of went for Hecate, decided that, hey, I don't want you to live anymore, and was erasing people left and right. But it does leave open, I think, the other magical carries that have been big, and Soul has been particularly useful for like the Renegades. A couple of players are leaning that way, but it's really been kind of just Barracuda. Everyone loves Oleron, everyone loves Freya, and Cyclone Spin made Kronos look really good once, and no one's gone back to him since. So I'm wondering if we'll see anything like that from Elevate here to try and match this Oleron that's been picked up.
Yeah, that's tough, right? The Outquang ban that we sort of discussed a little bit there, that opens up the door to Oleron, who's been one of the most contested picks at the SPL level, who hasn't quite been as contested. We have seen maybe once or twice, Gore, is this Set, and with the rise of the Soul Leader here, Set tends to be, or might be, a pretty popular pick on the rise.
Yeah, he's been, again, very, very interesting with how he's done. We saw him yesterday, played in the jungle, and Dave, I was actually a little upset that you missed this one because Paul picked up a Morrigan, kept transforming into Set the entire game as the Knights, and then the next game took Set mid. So it feels weird to me to say this, but it is something that has some weird precedence now that I can say we have seen Set go mid. More than likely going to be the jungle here. And again, it is just he brings so much. He is a little more difficult, I think, to pull off at a coordinated level. But if you hit that stride and get the rhythm going in his kit, then he can 100-0 virtually anybody that he decides to stick to, especially if it's someone like the Soul. It's going to give her a lot of trouble.
Strong start for your best buds, and a roster that can certainly push those advantages. Great answer back, though, I think, here from Elevate. Soul has kind of been, I don't know if you consider it like a full tier down. Oleron, Freya have really been at the top of that magical ADC conversation, I think. Soul, maybe a half step down, maybe in the same tier, but just not quite as prioritized. So I think strong for Elevate to kind of go into that category still there as well. Vamana and Kuzenbo, though, Goremizer, I think a couple interesting picks for Elevate to go for at 1 and 2.
Well, a lot of it is coming down to how do you deal with Oleron, right? When Sanctified Fields comes out, one of the reasons he's one of the best is just because he's not only going to hit you really hard with all of his autos, but then this ult is this massive slow field. It's going to cause so much distress. Long-channeled CC-immune ults are Kuzenbo and Vamana, both of them going to be able to eat through that. Amaterasu as well, being able to jump through. I think a lot of this is focusing on how do we fight in this giant ability that's otherwise going to disrupt the team fight and favor your best buds. Well, hey, it's have Vamana just literally run down anybody who stands in there. Kuzenbo can displace people out of the ultimate so that somebody can pick them up. Then you get Disapparate, you have Dazzling Offensive there for Amaterasu. All of them allow you some sense of maneuverability around a team fight that Oleron can't disrupt.
And Amaterasu, I think, an interesting pick here because it might dictate what role this Vamana ends up in. I think we've seen Vamana in the solo lane more than we've seen him out of the jungle. Amaterasu, I think, can be a pretty popular jungle pick. So that's where my brain maybe tells me these two picks are going. With the rise, though, of the magical ADCs is the pairing with the traditional hunter as well. And that's what Elevate have gone for here, Goremizer. Do you think having the Soul and the Kernanos as the top bit of damage there for this squad is a good pair?
I think it's going to be really deadly to objectives, and when it comes down to the gods, I think it's going to end up being half and half. Soul can hit really hard, Kernanos can hit really hard, but this is, especially with the way they're splitting, maybe more than likely going to be kind of ability-based, maybe a more ability-focused Kernanos build to try and get some of that farm, especially to keep up with Ascilla early on. That might slow him down a little bit. Otherwise, we can see what a lot of these hunters have been doing. An early fail knot to get some crit works really well with Kernanos ultimate to be able to chase people down and continue getting damage while they're polymorphed so that they can't do anything in retaliation. I think it's going to give them a good edge. I just think it does depend on the synergy and how they utilize everything together. Because if Oleron decides to pick the fight the way he wants, I don't know if Kernanos is going to be able to hold up a candle to that.
Well, let's kick this one off. Your best buds versus Elevate. Of course, Gore and I will be on the call. Doug will be our observer, not only for this one, but all day during the SPL. It is indeed Crimson in the jungle here, so no funny business there, maybe with the outset of that set. Ananser, of course, will be piloting that Scylla in the mid lane. And then one of the curious talking points I think I had is where the Amaterasu versus the Vamana end up, and it's going to be Ama in the solo Gore, putting Spreen on that Vamana in the jungle.
And honestly, I think this is going to be interesting to see. Vamana in the past has done well, and honestly continues to do well with things like a Hasten Katana, can chase people down, stick to them very well. Now you're giving him a speed buff that allows him to stick to them even better and have that mobility and movement speed. The only thing he's going to be lacking, especially compared to, like an assassin that would typically be in the jungle, is maybe the scaling that's going to come with a lot of those builds. But honestly, the itemization right now, specifically for junglers, and I'm thinking if you're going to go ahead and build some blades up, I think he can utilize a lot of them as well. So it's, timid agreeance with it, but I still think he can do well.
Sure, I tend to agree with you there, I think, on that one. Early action here over in the long lane. Shia taken down to just above 100 HP, somewhere between 1 and 200. Does have some pots to keep himself in this lane a little bit longer. Gore, it's been kind of a phase maybe with slower action here in the long lane. Still have absolutely seen some presence, but maybe with the rise of these magical ADCs, the era of these big, massive, swinging fights early on could be behind us. Not when you have a Hercules in your lane, though. That's going to be the knockback over onto Shia, who now has to take a jungle route through to try to get away. Griff is going to turn his attention instead to dropping down some HP on Rinjaru. Nothing comes of it, though, but you have forced Shia out of lane for a moment.
And I think this is something that has been on the rise. When you see magical carries come in, you have to figure out how to balance the team between your physical and magical damage. We've seen a lot of teams even throw out the magical damage sometimes and just go 4 physical, 1 magical.
Right.
Here, you're kind of in that similar vein, but grabbing this Hercules, who's already been very popular, gives you a lot of aggression here. You're going to be clearing faster, I think, as Oleron than you're going to see out of a Kuzenbo alongside a Soul. So the early game advantage is definitely in favor here here of your best buds. And what I love the most out of it is that they put Aquarius over there playing this Hercules, something that he's done tons of times over there in the solo lane, so he's just going to make it look good.
And it has looked good up to this point. A 1-level lead so far in that support category, and you force Renjaru to use his beads early on here in this game, so that opens the door to maybe a rotation through. Instead, it's Spreen actually rotating over towards this purple buff. Off of cooldown here in just a few seconds. Could see some fireworks if Griff and Aquarius are feeling confident enough to go claim their own purple buff. No ward coverage on this side of the map. Purple started by Spreen here. Reset, though, just for a moment. It looks like they got a little bit of vision there. Instead, Shia getting knocked back now by Aquarius. Griff has some damage, but not just enough to take down Shia. The purple buff has been dropped in the meantime as well. So you have forced out the Kuzenbo, but you've lost your purple buff in the meantime.
And I love it because Aquarius, he used his free ward, dropped it over the wall, so they'll have the timer on the buff, which I guess is going to be important for them, but losing the farm is maybe going to end up hurting them here. And you can actually already see Soul ticking up to level 4. She is a little bit behind, but that's because he's had to take a couple of detours off into the jungle or back to base in order to stay alive. But it's just those little plays that I think are going to help control Griff and Aquarius more than anything. Spreen comes over here, takes a purple buff once. Cool, now you're half a level behind. Now he does it a second time. Now you're a level behind. Like, you slowly but surely see it accrue over time, and you could start seeing that level advantage help out Renjaru, especially since right now he really needs it.
It does need a little bit of help here in the long lane. Bead still 45 seconds away on Renjaru, so still the kill pressure for Aquarius if it ends up standing there. Gore, you talked about kind of an interesting split between team strategy maybe with these magical ADCs. Elevate have gone for, obviously, the Soul. We've talked plenty about Renjaru and how that lane has gone. A little bit of magical damage, of course, with Shia on that Kuzenbo.
Yeah.
But then you've got an Amaterasu, a Vamana, and then a Cernanos providing the Cernanos rather providing the majority of the rest of your damage. And I think it's interesting maybe to talk about this mid lane because we've seen kind of the more caster-based hunters filling in the more ability-based hunters is just kind of the correct way, I suppose, to word that. And obviously, kind of the brine patch that Cernanos will throw out does some good damage. But more auto attack centric than maybe what we're used to seeing with the magical ADC paired with the mid lane hunter.
I think he rides the line almost perfectly, right? And it's weird to say this because we don't get to see him often, and I think there's maybe something to be said about his scaling or his powers, late game fights, whatever you want to look at. But having the clear that he has with that patch is going to be able to help him out, and then you can control it with a lot of autos, and they play well and do his passive as well. That it allows you to transition from this early game clear against a Scylla to a late game powerhouse without having to worry about anything. You can still get crits, you can still go attack speed. Right now, it looks like he might be hovering somewhere between going ability base or something a little bit more attack base, so it'll be fun to see how he decides to build here for Bluegan.
So it looks like a Transcendence first overall. Purple buff back off respawn. Spreen looking for the invade once more. So both junglers here for this small engagement. Aquarius has walked far forward and knocked down Renjaru. Oh my goodness, I didn't think the boulder was going to do that much damage. See you later, Soul. First blood over to your best buds. Now, there's the ultimate as well from Griff, and that's going to set up the kill for Crimson. Your best buds kind of counter-engage this invade from Elevate, and they've picked up a couple of kills.
And just being able to find those almost back-to-back on the duo lane where there's been a lot of pressure from Spreen to try and keep that Soul and Kuzenbo alive. I mean, Aquarius and Griff have been over here trying to do anything and everything they can to shut them down early on. Now they finally get that going, and you can see where this level difference is going to make a huge, huge impact. Kuzenbo not having any sort of CC immunity to deal with a Sanctified Fields there is not necessarily the difference between life and death, but you don't have that displacement. You can't necessarily peel as well for Renjaru. It's one of those things that maybe is not going to happen that way a second time in this game now that he's hit level 5.
Right, it's the perfect timing, really, for your best buds to find that fight. They've had this lane pressure, and it's that one moment where they tick up and are able to meet that ultimate threshold, and Elevate aren't able to match. So now a couple of kills online, a 1.4 1K gold lead for your best buds 6 minutes into this game. Things starting off well for the Team Gore that we figured might have a small advantage. Actually, XP differential, gold differential, relatively even here up to this point. So all things considered, a small lead. But Elevate, you have a composition with this Soul for Renjaru and Bluegan. on the Cernanos that'll have that scalability. So all things considered, only being down about 1K here, certainly not the end of the world.
The only thing that makes me like Elevate's draft late game more than your best buds is really the Wukong. I think Wukong, like, I love playing Wukong. I pick him up and I'll take him into the support any time of the day. I love the stun. I love the damage. I love what
As you
Wukong
should.
can do. But a lot of what he can do late game is not die. He can disrupt a little bit, you can get aggressive with it, and you can see Gamma even here showcasing a little bit of that aggression. But compared to an Amaterasu, compared to Vamana, I just don't know that he's going to be able to hold a candle to the other warriors we see in this game. And I think there's something to be said about, you know, what he can bring. Attack speed slow, regular slow, a stun or knockup depending on how he wants to use 72 transformations. He's definitely able to choose, you know, Blugan or Renjaru and stop them from being aggressive.
And I love this here from your best buds. They've now got a small lead over in the long lane, and they're going to bring everyone over to the purple buff. Massive boulder from Aquarius sets up the damage, and Crimson will knock down the kills. He is rotated over, but so is Andenstern, does most of the damage to the Amaterasu as Griff will pick up the kill there. Gore, ultimately, that's a 3-for-1 massive win for your best buds.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, you already have 3 kills on Crimson. Him dying once isn't going to be the end of the day for him. And it gives you that aggression. You know, the one thing I think that's going to help this draft out for your best buds is getting online even faster. I mean, Scylla does immense amounts of damage. You see it right there. And this I'm a Monster, if it connects, could have been a monstrous.
Oh, but the polymorph nearly from Blugan was enough to turn around the fight there. I mean, I suppose it really did turn around the fight, but actually nearly got Blugan the kill there. Andenster, had he hit that Sikkim, I think that's a big-time kill over onto Blugan. But all else equal there. No kills on the board, or no solo kill on the board, rather, for either of those two. So Blugan's still showing that he can turn around some of these fights, despite where Andenster is so far into this game with a couple of assists on the Scylla. Now, Gore, I think that's an interesting talking point as well. Sort of Scylla in this mid lane. We have seen Scylla's blow games out of the water, carry these games from the mid lane. You do massive amounts of damage, kind of in a solo perspective. I guess a lot of that revolves around your ability to hit the Sikkim, the Crush, the I'm a Monster to immediately follow up. Do you think there's enough setup from the rest of the team in your best buds to give Andenster a great shot in a lot of these team fights?
I think so. I mean, you've got Aquarius, which I think is the mainstay that is going to be locking people down and making it easy for Andy. But even to an extent, Gamma, again, you know, going back to the stun he brings, a slow he brings, each going to make it easier for Andy to be able to lock someone down. And then Griff, if you're in a Sanctified Fields, it's so easy to hit that target with an I'm a Monster all of a sudden because they're just so slow in comparison.
Good point.
Again, it's almost like being Neo in the Matrix. You literally can see the code. You know exactly where to throw the ability to make sure it clips them down. It's either going to force beads, Aegis, or just outright kill somebody. So I think it's going to work well. And it is this dichotomy that has been coming through of like a burst mage in mid with a mage carry over there in the duo lane, and then 2 warriors, 2 assassins, whatever you have to fill out the roster to make it work.
Aquarius has been setup man and damage man through and through here. Looked for a setup over onto Blugan, got half of his HP. Spreen is there as well. It's an attempted red buff invade. The tides have really changed here on this backside of the jungle, where Elevate early in the game, remember, invading that purple buff over and over and over again. Didn't work out for him once, and now it's Crimson starting things off. See you later, Renjaru, as Crimson will pick up his 4th kill of the game. 100% kill participation for this set out of the jungle. Crimson having himself a game and a half up to this point. And now, Gore, maybe it's a Gold Fury being pulled.
It's going to be difficult as well for Elevate to contest this. Not only are the gold lead and everything really favoring your best buds right now, but I mean, you've got Scylla. Any objective is going to be much easily secured, you know, by her compared to, what, Kernanos? I mean, Soul, they're going to be able to come through and do a lot of DPS to it, but they don't have that big burst to really end off an objective. So Fire Giants, Gold Furies, in my mind here, are going to favor your best buds, especially considering the timing. I mean, Aquarius just showed it perfectly.
Right.
Blugan throws out his ultimate, and it looks good. Not as good as that, Andy. Just that was the combo. That's if you're ever wondering how to play Scylla, Andy just put on the 1, 2, and 3 of it. You hit him with Crush, you hit him with Sikkim, and then you ult him afterward, and you're going to be perfectly fine. But you get that CC immunity through Blugan's ult. You get right now, a Brawler's Beat Stick. Hopefully we see a little more anti-heal, but being able to deal with the Heed healing, being able to deal with Spreed's healing in his ult, Blugan's going to have some built into his kit, and then Soul has some built into her kit. It's healing all around. I think this is just going really well for your best buds. The itemization is going to help them as they go into the late game.
Well, the smallest win, and maybe the only win Elevate could find here so far, is actually knocking down their own purple buffer, and Jaru's going to be able to rotate through and snag that one. That solo kill in mid lane, Gore, I think is actually a great kind of magnifying glass on the conversation around how Sikkim is kind of what all of this Scylla kit revolves around. You saw the 1v1 a few moments before that, where Sikkim missed, and Blugan nearly turned around the damage. Annenster hit the Sikkim in that previous engagement and was able to delete Blugan off of the map. Ooh. Feeling a bit too aggressive there as Spreen is rotated through. Andy able to dash his way away, but Spreen CC immune as Andy does the same in response. Low health bars on Andy, but he's going to walk away from this one. Heat is rotated through. Dazzling offensive. Aegis out. Sikkim crushed down under the tower. That's going to slow down Heat. The Thorns. I think that's a smart play by Andy. You're not going to pop the crush. Might have killed off that mid lane Scylla. Now Heat having to sidestep all in on Andenster. It doesn't pay off for much. Who's going to finish off the kill here? It's Gamma. And somehow, all of a sudden done, one more kill for your best buds.
There's probably 8 things to talk about, and 6 of them were all in what Andenster just did as Scylla. I mean, that was just a perfect showcase of what she can do, both offensively and defensively, right? Like, you get the full combo just a second ago onto Blugan, and right there, you see how good Sentinel is for a disengage when you've been locked down. You have movement speed on your ult, so you are able to use it to get away, which we saw, and like you had highlighted, the slow from Crush, being able to help buy just a little bit of time and space there to make sure that Heed couldn't get that kill. Everything Andenster just did reminded me of how good of a player he is, why he has a World Championship ring, and why he is someone that I think you can trust to pick anything in mid, but I'd absolutely give him this Scylla 10 times out of 10. That was fantastic.
Yep. Fantastic plays from Andenster, and I think the trigger control on not popping that crush underneath the tower, not only do you get the extra slow, but you don't put yourself at 1 HP thanks to the Thorns bouncing back from Heat. I mean, if that's me, I'm popping Crush immediately, just hoping for a little extra damage. So Andenster is certainly putting on a clinic here as well. 1-0-2, not the highest kill participation. That's still over on Crimson here on this set out of the jungle, affecting 7 of the 8 kills. Griff and Aquarius hovering just behind. Sprawler's beat stick is paid off early. Looks like maybe building into that Transcendence tree a little bit later on. More ability-based damage there for Crimson. This set's starting to pay off.
Yeah, I think it's just, again, it's going to look really good. I think the Transcendence this early on, or this late, I should say, is realistically, I'm not worried about the stacks. I just want the stats I can get at base so we can come
Still
through.
good.
Of course, it's going to be helpful when it evolves. No matter what, it's going to be a useful item for him. And I think it just feels good overall with what set brings into the table. It's just going to need to be helpful here.
Andenster takes the Sentinels in. Blugan immediately there on the answer. Double stun from Aquarius. Goodbye, Blugan. Goodbye, Shia. Andenster being chased out by Heed once more. Can he pull one more Houdini? Dazzling offensive won't find the stun. Crush a slow. We've seen this story before, but this time Heed writes his own ending as Andenster takes a tumble. Spreen is there for an answer back as well. It's a great start off in this fight, Gore, for your best buds, but Elevate answer back with a couple of kills. Here's where maybe the tide turns. It's a killing spree for the Sun Wukong out of the solo lane. And your best buds pull that one final kill to maybe give them the advantage in the fight.
Yeah, otherwise, that was actually starting to favor Elevate, considering they lost their support in their mid versus their mid in their jungle. But that good rotation and good stun coming down from Gamma to help lock down Soul does make that big difference and brings it not only more in their favor, but to the point where this is a composition right now that even if Wukong is, considered the weakest link of the 5, they're so far ahead and they're playing so well as a team that it's not necessarily making a big difference. And honestly, the way they're ahead, you see 5,000 experience, almost 3,000 gold, hovering closer to 2,500.
Right.
You're actually down a level the last I saw, there in the jungle. It really is the advantage you have more or less in support, the duo lane, as well as that one level there for Gamma that is going to help make this big difference. Crimson is having a huge impact on these fights, but he's had to give up some farm in order to do so.
Yeah, Spreen, all things considered, has kept himself in the game very well, despite, I don't know, never do math on cast. 9 affected kills for Crimson and only 2, so a 7 differential there for Spreen. So he's kept himself in that jungle conversation very well. Biggest differentials here, Gore, you point out, in the support role out of the mid lane as well. I do think, though, Blugan, he's only died twice, but he's been constantly bullied by this Scylla. So I think hats off to really all of Elevate that the gap is not wider than it is at the moment, despite an 11-3 kill differential. I love the proactivity we're seeing from Your Best Buds, though, Gore. I mean, they realized early that they had this advantage on this left side of the map, and from then, invade on the purple buff, invade on the red buff. Let's constantly be fighting over here by our mid laner, by our long laners, and now the solo laners have rotated through as well. I think this has been clinical from Your Best Buds.
You know, Mifflin and I were joking about it yesterday. There was a point where he said, okay, we're hitting 25 minutes, which for European Challenger Circuit play means that the game's going to start now. And I think that it's just the way that it bounces between the European scene, which is slow, methodical, they want to wait until they can guaranteed win a fight, versus NA, where you're just going to kind of see what can happen here. And honestly, Elevate, you know, you're down by 8 kills, down by 3,000 gold. The gold difference isn't so huge that you're not willing to fight. I mean, even here, Spreen is taking positioning, waiting for Griff to make one step out of place, and moments like that where I think it's going to make this big difference. The only issue I have is it feels like Spreen maybe swapped where his Toxic Blade should be here. Yep. Has attack speed early on, but doesn't have that same Vamana stick-to-people potential that I think we're missing right now. That being said, it's all about the late game, so honestly, as long as they can still hold on for a few more minutes while he finishes off these next couple of items, he's going to be hitting just as hard no matter what.
That's true. Spreen's got kind of the bits and pieces of what he wants to end with getting put together, but doesn't have the full puzzle completed just yet. Big differential in the long lane as well. 1 level behind for Renjaru. Could get worse here if Griff is able to find a kill or an assist over onto Heed. Dazzling Offensive has been used, but so has the dash. So Heed gets out alive here. Big differential, though. That's a massive team fighting ultimate that's now down for Elevate as the Primal Fury started up. Half HP for Your Best Buds. Gamma will use his ultimate as well. See what direction he chooses to drop down. Right back into the fight. Blugan takes some good damage. Immediately pushed back by Gamma. That's a solo ultimate, though, from Blugan. Griff has finally gotten the kill over onto Heed. Sanctified Fields catches a couple on the back end of the fight, but Spreen is happy to walk right on through it anyway. Blugan is down in the mid lane as well. Big time boulder from Aquarius has gotten the damage. Down goes Renjaru. Shia is going to get chipped away as well. It's a double for the Hercules. And who else deserves it there? Aquarius doesn't necessarily set up the fight, but he sure finishes it.
And look, that distance between Spreed and Griff is the only reason Spreed was able to live there, because otherwise, I think that's another kill, maybe a full-on deicide for Your Best Buds. Great boulder is the thing that stands up, but also really good tactic from Your Best Buds. Elevate got so separated through that. Heed, first and foremost, I think was kind of pulled away from the rest of the team, and then it became pick one, pick two, pick one, right? Finding 4 members all together, all at once, in one single fight is difficult. But they kind of separated it into 3 different fights and made it much easier to then pick apart every single person of Elevate they ran into.
And I think that's kind of the... Obviously, Sanctified Fields is you know, in the conversation for the best ultimate in the game, but it's sort of the... Not only does it slow the enemy, but I think all you can think of if you don't have beads in that moment is I want to turn around and get out of this thing regardless of whether it's with the rest of my team or not. So Elevate kind of get mentally split there, I think, for a second. Everyone taking what they figured was the closest route out of the ultimate, and that ends up splitting them up in the jungle just a little bit further. So now Griff has started to really pull away from Renjaru as well. 0-5 on the Soul, 0-4 as well. I mean, 0-3, if you talk about mid-solo ADC for Elevate here, they're 0-12 with 2 assists on their side, and kind of the exact opposite for Your Best Buds. Differential as well in the magical ADC builds here. Gourmeiser, Ring of Hecate, no surprise to see that early for both of them, but Typhon's Fang for Renjaru, first completed item. Bancroft's Talon for Griff. Why maybe a differential in mindset here, and might get to see an answer as Renjaru being looked at. We'll drop down the ultimate. Spreen is here as well. Blinks forward onto Crimson. Damage not enough to turn around this time, so Renjaru is going to survive. The action continues, though, Gore. Not a moment to breathe here in North America as Gamma has found his way underneath the Tier 1 tower. Heed playing just back to the side as well. Double knockback from Aquarius. This guy cannot keep doing this. Griff gets the kill. There's the I'm a Monster down onto Shia. See you later, Tier 1 tower. Blugan and Shia learn the hard way that you're not going to lane against Aquarius and have a good time.
But I think a good showcase here from Renjaru and Spreen as to what Soul can do when left unanswered, and that is, well, just burn down any and every objective that stands in her way. Luckily, Gamma did back, so they're going to be able to trade Tier 2 for Tier 2 here. And honestly, with the numbers advantage, you might be able to pressure Phoenix. I don't know if you have enough right now to be able to go forward with it, but you might be able to clean up a couple kills here. Spreen and Ranjaru, yeah, join the fight.
They're going to collapse their way into the mid, but look at what Griff has been able to do to Heat here. It's kind of a weird roundabout, kind of a carousel of gods, as both teams were not really where they wanted to be and both happy to just rotate away from one another. So when it's all said and done, a couple tier 2 towers, or a couple towers rather, in the mid lane down for your best buds. Elevate, I do think, or find a win for themselves in that the left side Phoenix is now open for them. So if there's an advantage later on, they have a clear path in to the your best buds base, but it's going to be difficult with a fire giant now maybe being considered.
I mean, it's something that, again, your best buds have just a more distinct advantage if they go for it, because the way that Andenster's ult is going to go, as long as he's in the neighborhood, then it's going to be an easy secure. There's also the boulder. You have a lot, I think, from your best buds that can secure it, so this is a dangerous game for Elevate to play.
This might be backbreaking if your best buds were able to lock this one down, but it's Elevate doing most of the damage. Crimson goes down as well. This is the most split-up fight we've seen from your best buds so far in this game. You're going to have to steal it away if you're your best buds. Not able to do so as Elevate take down the FG. Andenster finds the I'm a Monster, has the reset as well, won't be able to execute it. So Shia goes down, 2 of your best buds do as well. And Elevate, what a call by them to lock down that FG.
Yeah, I mean, being able to secure that, I'm a Monster's there. The boulder was thrown out. I think both maybe just a little, one too late, one too early. And it ends up resulting in your best buds kind of floundering around the fire giant, which I think is going to be huge in here for Elevate. I mean, lead now starting to, well, not necessarily dissipate, still very heavily in favor of your best buds, but there's 4 towers on the map, Dave. I mean, hey, you've got a fire giant and a soul that usually together, just alone, means that you're going to be losing 3 of them. You add in the fact that you do have that Kernanos as a carry to come through from the mid lane, and I think 2 tanky members there, Spreen, Heat, and now Shia, since he's respawned. It should be pretty easy to siege down these towers. Breaking a Phoenix is going to be a different story, but at least evening up the gold is more than possible here.
And I think this is, you know, a great look at what we mean when it's sort of, you know, you can keep some of these magical ADCs down. I guess maybe this is kind of a conversation piece across, you know, all of the gods in the game, where you looked at, what did we say? 0-12 was the mid long lane combination there for Elevate. Now Ranjaru's met level 20, 1 tier of a ring item behind from being full build outside of the Hunter's Blessing there. So Ranjaru will absolutely swing in these fights. Elevate have bought themselves enough time, and now a great advantage to potentially even pull ahead here in this game. As mentioned before, long lane Phoenix open for Elevate, so as such they'll turn their eyes over to the mid lane. This is a big fight here. If you bite off too much of your Elevate, you gotta remember your best bud's still in a very strong point. Shia learns that the hard way. No execute from Andy, but you have TKO'd the Elevate support.
Now, I might be lit, but I feel like Griff had a Bancross Talon earlier, now has the Typhon's Fang, which the Typhon's Fang I agree with.
Correct.
The Bancross Talon had me scratching my head. Maybe that's why that last item's taking a little bit more time to come online, because he had to sell and buy, but it's one of those things, synergistically, it's just more power, and it's so good for you.
Yeah, it's a last-minute pivot there from Griff. Actually, yeah, I brought it up, and all the fighting happened. We never got a chance to cycle back, so good eyes there, Gore, to notice the pivot from Griff. Some low health bars around this Oni Fury. Elevate have controlled the last objective, and that was the Fire Giant. And my god, they're going to absolutely swing on the Oni Fury. An attempted steal from Aquarius, and actually was just off time. Andenster will crush down on Spreen, won't be able to finish it off. Sikkim, CC immuned out, but now it's the Colossal Fury off the map for the next little bit of time. Blink away from Spreen, so Andy doesn't quite have the follow-up and a rotation from Elevate. So that's all we've got here. But I think Elevate now showing us where their confidence stands in this matchup. They've controlled the Fire Giant, take away that Oni Fury with no sweat.
And now it's coming down to what you can do with it, right? I mean, a lot of this Fire Giant got the Oni Fury. They haven't done much else. I mentioned 4 towers. There's still 4 towers. You have to get aggressive, and you have to do something here.
Well, now it's 3 towers as the Dazzling Offensive and Polymorph from Blugan will be used, and Aquarius catches both. Look at that Sanctified Fields, though. Shia cannot go anywhere once the ultimate is back onto cooldown. Andenster looking for I'm a Monster, not able to find the kills. Knockback from Aquarius is going to put Ranjaru in a corner, and Crimson is going to finish off the damage there. The double kill for the set jungle and your best buds say FG who, and they're going to walk their way down the mid lane.
All right, Phoenix is exposed. You just got rid of 3 people, so, I mean, are they going to be able to stop it here? They honestly, yeah, could try to run it down. Now, Heed, Spreen, neither of them have their ult. There's not a lot they can do to defend here.
Oh, Andy catches a lot of damage, though. Mid lane, Phoenix will get taken down. How aggressive
How confident are you
feeling, your best buds? The answer is I think smart. I think smart is the answer here. Yeah, there's a moment, 30 seconds left on Blugan and Renjaru, so both the carries are down. But Heed, Spreen, and Shia can do plenty of damage, and your best buds certainly learned that. So you get the mid lane Phoenix, knock down the final tower over in the long lane here. But I wonder how Elevate are now feeling. They're actually going to try to engage. It's Aquarius being pushed back, Spreen just off to the sides, Griff trying to back here and will be successful in doing so. But you've left a couple of members of your team with Elevate bearing down on them, but you talk about Wukong just being able to survive in the late game, Goran. We've certainly reached that point.
And if he does one thing that he does well, it is staying alive. Somersault Cloud keeps you alive and disengages for you. 72 transformations, you go to bird form, you're out of the fight as fast as you can unless somebody's able to cancel it. So I like the fact that the only 2 that are left are Gamma and Aquarius. You get Andy out of there and you get Griff out of there. I think both of their ults are going to be essential for this next Fire Giant fight. It just now respawned, Pyro's up as well. You want Aquarius around because of the boulder and the potency that Hercules can bring to it, but having the I'm a Monster, having a Sanctified Fields, it changes the game. I mean, it changes the pace of it. We saw what it was able to do during the last fight. Even without an I'm a Monster connecting, Andy just kind of went up into it, used the movement speed, and then canceled it for the CC. Now, they should have the advantage here, much like they should have had it on the first one.
Well, here we go. It's the FG fight towards the end. Shia pops the ultimate, catches a lot of crush damage. Aquarius will excavate some ground over there as well. So the Elevate support now out of this fight. Gamma's found himself a couple over by the mid lane Harpies, and your best buds will be able to take those down with ease. Of course you will, 28 minutes into the game. Both teams cautious, though, Gormizer, around this Fire Giant. Pyromancer, a much more attainable goal.
I mean, well, before I could even say it's easy to burn down, guess what they did? They burned it down. That's how fast you can take care of it. But this is the fight that they were missing before. Elevate started that first Fire Giant, started the song and dance around it. Heed's in a good position, Spreen's in a good position to come in, but your best buds have the advantage of defending the Fire Giant. They can drop it whenever they need to.
No support ultimates, but no mid lane ultimate now for Elevate as Blugan has found the kill. Over onto Crimson, Aquarius, half HP. Gamma dashing away, but Heed is dashing back in. Gamma is left alone here. Nobody else from your best buds in range, but tanky enough is the Wukong to turn the corner, but not tanky enough to survive. It's a rampaging Griff, though, as we find a 2-for-1 trade. Elevate over by this Fire Giant pit have maybe staved it off. Gorit's going to transform into the enhanced Fire Giant in the next 30 seconds. So you wonder how these teams are feeling. Maybe just a delay until we're back to full strength.
If there was no Pyromancer here, I think this would be a good time for Elevate to try and press their advantage. But that Pyromancer, Andy's just going to be able to get not only back into the fight, but maybe even able to help isolate Heed here. Looks for the Sikkim. I love the combo, the aggression that's coming down. They recognize that they have an advantage here. And they're going to force Elevate to play their game, even if they're the ones right now looking to try and just defend the Fire Giant.
Well, in 2 seconds, it will become enhanced as you now see the glow around the Fire Giant. So they have about enough time for the enhanced FG. Griff stays alive. Good Aegis buys himself a little bit of time, but not enough as Heed will finally get the kill. Griff goes down, but so does Spreen. 1-for-1 trade so far. Gamma now respawning from the previous fight. Heed has stayed just a little bit too long. Crimson not able to finish off the kill, and the Excavate won't have the legs either to find its way into the backline as Heed continues to run away. Crimson looking for maybe a re-engagement there, won't be able to find it. Renjaru, half HP. It looks like Elevate just can't buy themselves any health here. They can't buy themselves a moment to breathe as your best buds continue to push down on that gas pedal. Polymorph over onto Aquarius, but Hercules is so tanky, it won't result in much there. Big ultimate now down from Elevate. Is the mid lane Phoenix starting to get looked at, Gormizer?
I mean, they can put pressure on it, and you already see how low it is. They have these minions coming through, and considering it's just now respawned, it makes it a lot easier, but Anderson just gets eviscerated.
Look at what she is able to do there, buys so much space for the rest of his team. Spreen now back and respawning as well. Ankles just a bit broken there as Crimson is able to move his way away. Ultimate used by Gamma to try to retreat as well. Elevate sensing blood in the water. They realize they have a momentary advantage with no more Annenster here in this fight. That's an immediate rotation over to the EFG.
I mean, being able to pick this up would be huge for them. The first Fire Giant didn't get as many towers as I thought they could, but it did give them the right swing to be back in this game. Hey, they have to be just as careful of Aquarius as they do for Annenster, but since Annenster's gone, it's just Aqua.
Oh, big ultimate there from Griffs. Goodbye to Heed, says the rest of your best buds. It's now the Colossal Fury by Spreen used. EFG down to about 25% HP. Ultimate from Renjaru will get used as well. It's a 4 versus 4 fight with Annenster reinforcing just a little bit sooner. And that's massive. You look at this build that this Scylla has gone for. Staff of Mirrodin to sort of round things out with the Obshard as well. You need Annenster in these fights if you're your best buds.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, not only is he bringing a lot of security when it comes, like, if you're going to be Elevate, you can't risk trying to get that Fire Giant below half without making sure Annenster, and in my mind, Aquarius are gone. So you have to be careful in that respect. But you also have to be careful in the fact that you take one misstep against the way Annenster's been playing, you're going to be sickumed into a crush, into an I'm a Monstered faster than you can think to hit your beads, and he's going to just decimate you.
Well, Shia has continually found the backline with his previous few ultimates. Your best buds take down the Fire Giant. Spreen left limping away as well. Renjaru back to grayscale for the next minute, and so is Shia as well. This maybe is finally the fight that has broken the game.
I mean, it definitely should be able to end it. Not only, as you highlighted, is an enhanced Fire Giant, but that mid-Phoenix is already weakened. There's only 1 tower standing, and 3 people on Elevate to defend 5 barreling down mid lane right now. Annenster still has his ult, so does Crimson, so does Aquarius. Sanctified Fields are about to come up. This should be able to end the game here.
Well, mid lane Phoenix won't be much in the way of safety for Elevate. Back beneath the Titan. Your best buds, I think, could just turn their eyes towards the Titan. All 5 members swinging away. That's going to be the game. Your best buds find a fight underneath the Fire Giant, and that's all they needed to take this one. I think you have to give props to Elevate, Gormizer, to keeping themselves in this game. Yeah. It's 11-3 at some point in the kills department, and Elevate keep fighting their way back in. But ultimately, it's just a catch out here, a catch out there, and that's what seals the deal, and your best buds take game number 1.
And honestly, there's a lot of moments, you know, I think early on we're talking a lot about this set and what we see Crimson doing. It's kind of slowed down as the game went on there. Mid lane kind of stayed consistent. Annenster showcased Scylla pretty well throughout all of that. But the one thing I think that they had, and I want to start a petition. I like the name Your Best Buds, but it really was Aquarius's plays. I mean, I think it was 3-0-20, and so 23 of 26 total kills that the team was able to get. It was insane for him. And as such, I think it should be a throwback to one of his old teams. It should be Aquaman in the Waves. Aquarius making strides for them throughout all of this. I love what he was able to do on this Hercules.
Yeah, there's a lot of teams in this league with namesakes. You look at Baskin and the boys, what used to be Bloogie and the Woogies. I agree. After this game, it should be something around Aquarius. You are correct, Gormizer. 3-0-20 on that Hercules. I'll take that any day of the week. And it really only took one misstep from Elevate in that early game. Remember, they invade that purple buff successfully once. That's the word I'm looking for. I talk for a living, by the way. And then it's the return invade on the purple buff where your best buds were able to turn around the damage, turn around the kills, and springboard that long lane for the rest of the game.
I do think there is a little bit of difference throughout all of it. Of course, Aquarius, I mean, what is that, 4,000? Maybe closer to 3,000 more damage than Shia did, but, and possibly more, or less, I guess, deaths in this case. It was 2 and 9, I believe, for the Kuzenbo versus the 0 deaths that we saw there for Aquarius. A lot of deaths versus kills between the Olarun and the Soul as well. It's just those small little differences that are going to make the big deal. And, of course, you got to see it because Olarun heals everyone around him, but his effective healing forces a couple of items to go, counter to that, try to slow them down. The Cursed Ankh was over there. I believe we saw a Toxic Blade from the Bavana. Just a couple of changes that didn't quite feel they helped overall for Elevate versus as much as slowed them down. So I think there's a couple of things that they want to change really going into this next game. It might all just be caught by banning Olarun at the beginning.
And a lot of what we were looking forward to in that game, I think, from Elevate was the ability for the Amaterasu to get into the backline, this Vamana. We talked about the CC immunity walking through the Sanctified Fields, presumably to the backline. there just wasn't the value, I don't think, that Elevate were hoping for out of those backline dive potential gods. So maybe picks and bans will tell a different story for Elevate here. Now in that first pick slot, your best buds, of course, dropping then to the second. So we kind of recount what we saw in the ban phase score, I think, for game number 1. And it was a lot of what we expected, but it was that Ao Kwang that kind of stood out. And that's what gave the Ola run over to your best buds, and then Elevate take that soul later on. I wonder now if being in that first pick slot, that changes your mindset around some of that.
Well, you can see Elevate already adapting, right? Because they had 2 kind of more or less meta bans, and then one, the Ao Kwang, that kind of felt like maybe it's a meta ban, maybe it's just going to be something that's targeted towards your best buds. The first thing they start off with here is Hercules, and you know since their first pick, they're hoping something's open, whether it be a Freya, Olarun's no longer on the table, but one of these top picks being able to make it through. It's up to your best buds then to either leave open enough that they still get something amazing, or to try and take away everything they don't want to deal with here. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Freya.
Now, Gore, I know I wasn't, around yesterday for all of the SPL games. Was Ao Kwang that good that now we're starting to see him just banned out in all these circumstances? What's your thought on the Elevate priority here for the Ao Kwang?
I think, especially at this level of play, Ao Kwang he just destroys, man. There's no other way to word it. Think about it. You lock him in, you get Ring of Hecate, that's already sick. You go for auto attacks, it feels so good already with his kit, but you have this potential to stick to people that maybe you wouldn't have had a few years ago when people were building a more ability-based and trying to deal damage that way. Now I think the scaling, everything that's going with the magical items, the rings specifically, play into him really well. And I hope Elevate are not only happy with the ban of him, but happy with that Nemesis, because I think giving up Freya, it's tough. That's just tough.
Right, and look at what the big change is in that ban phase. It's the Hercules. Aquarius brought enough presence on the Hercules in Game 1 that it pulls Elevate to ban out the Hercules here for Game 2. So if you kind of look at the scales here, it's basically Elevate saying Hercules, in our mind, in Aquarius' hands, is a bigger threat than what Freya brings to the table. It's kind of that one-for-one swap we see here. We'll have to see if that gamble plays off. You're giving up a lot in the Freya, so we'll just have to wait and see. Achilles, though, hasn't seen all that much play here recently, Goremizer, but I still think a strong pick, depending on where you place him. Do you like what the best buds have drafted in their first 2?
The Achilles I'm a little more on the fence about, but I think his flexibility warrants him getting picked up a little early just because you can send him kind of all around the map, especially considering what we've seen right now in this meta. Honestly, it could be Andenster who wants to take him over there. Well, not into the mid. I'm thinking Aquarius over there into the duo lane. Andenster's probably just going to run back the Scylla now that that's been locked in. But being able to pair it up, I just think it works well. Good executes that come through in the middle of a team fight, especially against someone like a Terra that has healing. It's a good way to try and stop them before they can get back up and ready to get back into an engagement. So I think it's just a control factor that Best Buds is bringing.
Yeah, and I obviously love the Freya. It's such a strong pick. You're losing a little bit of that utility factor, though, some of the setup for the rest of the team, but you're providing massive amounts of damage, so you certainly won't find me scoffing at a Freya first pick here for your best buds. And now look at what they've banned out. Double magical hunters at in their second wave. Soul taking a seat, and so is Kronos as well. We've only seen one Kronos at the SPL level, and it looked good, admittedly, there in that game. So your best buds realizing there's enough of a threat there to take that one away. Now Elevate through their first 3, Nemesis, Ullr, Terra. So if we're assuming that's an Ullr, Terra in the long lane, Gore, how do you like those 2 paired together?
Honestly, I think it's going to be good in terms of pressure against Freya early on, but I don't know if it's going to be enough late game to make the big difference. Terra, though, I think is great specifically for disengage, whereas Best Buds have gotten great engage on their team. So Achilles being able to go in, Scylla's setups, Camazot's setup, I'm going to assume whatever they lock in last, it's going to have a lot of setup on there. Terra's going to be able to help get everybody out of there. If they do lock in this Cerberus, it's a good amount of counter picks as well to help deal with a little bit of healing, but a lot of CC onto it. Helps deal with the Freya, I think, a little bit as well, and good peel either for the team or setup for the team here for Elevate. So I really like where they're going with this draft.
I think Cerberus has seen, pretty mixed results out of the games where we've seen him, but I agree with you. I think he provides some great utility here for Elevate. And then the Nuwa, to round things out, has some self-peel potential. So you look at your best buds and their ability to kind of dive at you. And you know, always if a big Sikkim hits, you're in a little bit of trouble anyway. But I think Nuwa provides the ability to just take a breath from a fight for a moment before making her way right back in. Now, chalk to round out the draft for your best buds, Gormizer. I see maybe, I don't know, I call it confusion, but an inquisitive look on your face potentially about one of these two drafts.
I'm trying to figure out why chalk. That's it. That's honestly all I got for you. Why chalk? I think there's a lot of warriors that are going to be able to go over there that are open and maybe able to just do what chalk does, but better. So I think there's something good. But he brings, a good amount of healing for himself, which is going to give him sustain. A really good, huge knock-up in his ult. So I think team fight-wise, that might be part of what they're looking for. A nice CC ability in that as well, or CC immunity in that as well, maybe to help dodge out Cerberus a little bit. I think he's definitely got something that he can bring into the table. I just want to know how it's going to work here.
Sure. Well, Elevate versus your best buds, Game 2. Let's go down to your casters to get it started. Thanks, Dave. It's Dolson and Gormizer on the call here for Game 2 between your best buds and Elevate. And the question I had going into it, Gore, is who is playing support? And it's Aquarius on this Achilles. So I think now a good way to kind of compare what we see here. Shia on the Terra, Renjaru on the Uller, pretty standard as far as the long lane duo goes. And really the big difference maker here, let's be honest, what we're going to be talking about is Aquarius on Achilles support and if that could work.
Right now, I am in the mindset that most supports, like the higher level you get, the smaller I think the pool is right now to make support work. But I think right here, your best buds, no matter what, as long as you're comfortable playing it, you can make something work. And I've been using like random highlights. I played Anubis support the other day. It's not something I endorse. I was losing my mind at that point. I think it was on my like 6th or 7th hour of Smite. So maybe there's something to be said about that. But I do think if you have the will, you can make it happen here. And something like that is outlandish for competitive play. But Achilles is right there in that area. He has a stun. He's got setup. When it comes down to it, he's going to be able to help Griff a lot in this engagement, and more importantly, it's going to give them some early aggression, which they need to deal with this Uller on the other side.
Right, you can already see what Shia and Renjaru are going to be doing throughout the early part of this lane. Aquarius hits level 2 before anyone else here, and is going to find the double stun, so maybe some return damage there just to buy a moment to breathe for Griff and Aquarius as well in the long lane. I think the kind of interesting point that what we've seen with this Freya is, I look back to the PK game they had, I think it was last week, and it was Cuvo Fred on the Nemesis, ganked Freya a couple of times, got a kill or two early in the game, and it still wasn't enough to slow her down. And it certainly won't help if Griff gets the first kill. What a wall from Shia to maybe prevent the first death from coming through. You've got to do a lot, I think, is the point I'm trying to make here, Gore, to keep this Freya from taking over the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, in my mind, they've done it in draft as much as they can, right? You've got walls to maybe block some shots or stuns to make sure you can lock Griff down early on. Uller, I think, as far as damage goes, output-wise later on, might be able to match her, but the problem is Freya's spike right now comes a little bit faster than you're going to see out of Uller's spike, so it's going to take him a little longer to get online, but stun coming down from Blugan, which isn't going to help him here.
And Crimson is going to find first blood in this one, and they just sort of walk at Blugan. I guess that's the threat of this new WA, is if you don't have your ultimate up, you're immobile, and if your stun combo isn't ready, you just kind of get walked at by a Camazotz. So no surprise there, and especially Camazotz being the buzzword, I think, there, Gormizer. As much as a Freya can get out of control, we've seen what a Camazotz can do as well once that ball gets rolling.
Yeah, I think 3 of the gods your best buds have, Andy on the Scylla, the Camazotz, and the Freya, just in essence, can very easily spiral out of your control, and so Elevate are going to have to play very carefully. I think Nemesis is incredibly solid. I like Terra. I think Blugan playing this new WA is going to be helpful, but I just don't know if it's going to do enough for them here.
Right.
That is going to make that big difference. Heat is going to make great rotations later on with this Cerberus. I'm going to be honest, scratching my head over the chalk. And it comes from a place of love, because I do enjoy playing Shock. He is probably one of my favorite gods. Just all in all, I enjoy his kit. I enjoy just his aesthetic, I guess is the better way to word it, and playing him is fun. But even I'm willing and ready to admit that he doesn't necessarily do it as well as some Guardians and stuff. Maybe if he goes for something a little more damagey and like on the damage side of Bruiser, I guess is the best way to word it, he can absolutely run the show and disrupt your backline.
Right, I mean, Chalk has damage, but does he provide the same that some of the other warriors have, is what we'll have to see. Who was it? Sino played Chalk Jungle, I think, a couple weeks ago, so obviously valued at the highest level of the game, Gore, and you know, it maybe for some good reason here. So Gamma, you've got something to prove to us. Andenster proving that I'm a Monster can hit. Telegraphed is the landing spot for Blugan, but enough damage from Spreen to turn that one around. And then over in the long lane, one goes down as well. That's Aquarius, so there was enough damage from Ranjaru and Shia finally to get a kill there. Gore, and all of the flurry, it's a 1-for-1 trade.
That's how I kind of expect the duo lane to go, right? I didn't expect Aquarius to be a huge playmaker for them early on, but losing Aquarius in that position, Crimson not able to even confirm one of those kills, makes a huge difference for them. That first blood they got earlier is going to be not necessarily nothing now, but you can already see the first blood bounty starting to disappear. The dabbing eagle appropriate from Spreen. Because, I mean, that was just such a sick play from him. If he's not there, Blugan dies a second time, and Nuwa falling behind is not going to be able to do much for your team.
Yeah, an important gank, rather, there, or counter gank, maybe, from Spreen. So it was a 2-for-none, despite what my mouth had said a few seconds ago. Elevate pulled themselves a couple of kills here. Now, Gore, I think what we've seen in large part in this long lane up to this point is, depending on where the teleport and kind of lane state, who's been able to go back, who hasn't, Heat has been doing a decent job of kind of bullying out Gamma, I think, up to this point, and not much of a difference forming there. I hesitate because it's a nice double stun from Blugan and actually finds some good damage. Does that open up the door for Spreen to make his way in? Finds the clap of damage, but won't open things up for a kill. But kind of returning to that solo lane question, I wonder now if it's the idea where Spreen maybe senses that Gamma's getting pressured out and maybe makes his way over to solo.
I mean, I think it is something you have to keep your eye on overall, just because he, you know, again, is not going to be unimpactful late game. I think he's actually going to be the better of the two solo laners making that transition. But if Gamma starts getting control over here, then the Cerberus is going to take a lot longer to get to the point where he could try to counter out that Freya.
Well, look at this invade from Elevate. It works out. Red buff dropped. Aquarius having to use the execute to get out. Reset his dash. Looked for a moment like Aquarius is maybe going to go back in, but not to be. Griff kind of left alone here. Shia has found the stun. Follow-up axe just wide. And Griff will get out alive. It's now Elevate starting to take control of the game, Gore, with a successful red buff invade.
Well, when you see a bunch of people over there on left, you can do something over on right, and that means trouble for Heed. And again, you know, maybe it's Crimson because he's Kamazotz. Maybe it's Gamma having... Again, it's a massive ult with good damage from Chalk. But either way, getting a kill over there, again, just making sure that either Heed slows down or maybe you can speed up Crimson a little bit to catch up to Spreen here. Either one is going to be worth your time, and I think that's where your best buds have to focus. They have 3 win conditions, and all of them are falling behind right now.
I think, and as well for your best buds, this is where things start to get a little nerve-wracking. Spreen has spent most of his time on the your best buds side of this left side jungle here, just searching around. Maybe purple buff was up, maybe red buff was up. But obviously the confidence is there for the Nemesis while Crimson was on the other side of the map. That's a double stun from Aquarius, though. And a good look at kind of the state of the long lane here. Griff, no deaths just yet, but it is Ranjaru who's found that first kill in the lane. And it's always the question of, has it been enough, Gore? And Griff is humming along just fine, keeping himself in this lane.
You know, in 3 to 4 more waves, Griff is going to be absolutely ready to take any fight he wants. And that's just, how long does it take for him to get Ring of Hecate online, right? That's where
right.
His power spike is going to be. Then I think a hastened ring obviously is going to be very helpful for him just because it allows you to stick to people a little bit easier. But Aquarius is finding really good stuns. It's really good setup. Whether it's forcing the beads out, as of right now, it hasn't been happening. But I think as the game goes on, especially with the power spike from Griff coming up, it's going to make it a lot easier for that lockdown to matter.
Good damage from Blugan, but he's used all of his cooldowns here. Crimson, bat out of hell. His Spreen drops the ultimate onto the bat. Beneath the tier 1 tower goes Aquarius. It's really Elevate that are returning more damage than your best buds is able to deal with. A lot of that thanks to Blugan, who turned around some good damage onto the Camazotz here. Renjaru's obviously found some damage over onto Griff, waiting for his cooldowns to come back up, but Griff, I think smartly, is going to back his way away here. I wondered if Spreen would maybe make his way over to the solo lane. The answer is yes now. He will use the ultimate, but Gamma responds in kind. It's the dash away, and I suppose that's really what you have to look at, and it's that Gamma has the runic shield, so he's going to be tanky enough to survive a lot of the heat damage.
And honestly, I think the fact that he's Chalk has a lot of healing to keep himself alive as well,
Right.
and that's probably where my mind is. It's just, you can commit a lot of time over there and maybe chase down Gamma to get the kill, but he's close enough to his tier 1, has, again, a good ultimate that's either aggressive play or, in that case, good for self-peel because of the silence that comes out of it. And then you can just say, cool, now I'm full health again, what do you want to do? Like, I'm not going to kill you, you're not going to kill me, nothing's getting done over here. And I think that's what he's bringing, is just a solid stalemate to the lane.
Look at the rotation there from Renjaru. Aquarius was trying to be funny and poke down some damage onto the Uller, but immediately 1/3 HP remaining on Aquarius, who's had a tough game on this Achilles up to this point, and we're 9.5 minutes in, so it's hard for me to really say that. Has died 1 out of 2 times on his team, but does hold that 1 level lead over Shia. So all things considered, Aquarius has found some good value. Not quite as much as a Hercules. Spreen, though, is going to return over here to the solo lane. Gamma has his ultimate, uses it here, silence down onto 1. Heed jumps up and over. How does this one play out? Taking most of the damage, waiting for the return. Axe burning away. Tower doing enough damage, but it looks like Heed will get the kill and get out alive.
It was 1 second off there in terms of timing for Gamma. Almost had the heal available, but Heed was laying in wait with that stun coming through. And once you throw out that spit, it's going to be enough to make sure everything goes your way. It's a lot of damage, especially at the way he's going right now. I think that Gamma, even with the runic shield, you're going to be holding that one for a little while. And otherwise, Gamma played it well, right? Being able to bait Spreen away, use his dash all the way back to his axe in the tower range. It's just the fact that Elevate kind of read the move. They've seen it before. It's one of the only things Shock can do that's impressive. And unfortunately, it's pretty easily to read as well, which just leads to another death.
And look at what Gamma's moving towards here. I mean, no surprise that it's going to be a Soul Eater later on, but has the Bound Gauntlet picked up. And I assume that makes some sense to you, Gormizer, on this Chalk. Although I guess we're learning a lot of things about Chalk solo because we haven't really seen it all that much.
Well, the Soul Eater makes sense just because it's been big in solo, so at least that part is going to lock down. Yeah, it still, again, is going to confuse me. I want to see it in the team fight here as they transition in. I think Gamma had a lot of big plays as the Wukong last time. Unfortunately, Wukong I believe more in than I do in Shock, so maybe more to prove here, I think, as this solo laner. And this is the fight to do it.
Here's Heed once more
Or
doing
not.
battle with Gamma. Yeah, Gore, you set it up on a silver platter there, and both teams said no thank you. But it is an engagement instead on the left side of the map, with Crimson dashing away. Enough damage from Blugan to really make Crimson think twice about turning around, despite some good Camazotz sustain. Purple buff invade now online. Renjaru's going to take this one down for free. No return, or no counter, I suppose, from anyone on your best buds. So the lane pressure continues, despite us assuming that Griff is going to start coming online soon enough. Gets those boots instead of finishing the Ring of Hecate. And Rashir and Renjaru are going to continue to exert pressure. 2 levels of it, in fact, over Griff.
So there's almost 1,000 gold difference between Griff and Renjaru, and that is honestly what's saving the day. Most of the time, I'm highlighting this
Where's
level
the rest of the
difference,
gold?
right? 2 levels is going to be huge, but as of right now, it is stopping Griff from getting those items online that is helping them out. This Freya means nothing yet, and because of that, yeah, she might not have died, but she's not doing anything for
Wow.
the team either, and now they're starting to lose that map pressure because of it.
Yeah, Igor, I say wow because really the gold being so close right now is 100% the Renjaru over Griff factor. About 1,000 there, but then kind of fluctuating 3 members of your best buds over their counterparts on Elevate. So, you know, this game is absolutely close, but that puts maybe a little extra onus on Renjaru to carry his weight in a lot of these fights.
Yeah, I mean, he's so far been doing really well. We've seen the amount of damage he can hit, and now that he has the Crusher online, I expect it to be even more damage that we have coming through, especially if later he goes for something like a Heartseeker. Either way, he's going to be happy on this Uller. And he's hitting all of his bladed arrows and hail of arrows pretty easily, even without setup from Shia. But now Shia's almost been serving him on a silver platter to his hunter to make it a lot easier to make this Uller just come out and work.
Lots of rotation over here to this mid lane. Gamma in behind Elevate here up to this point. Griff alone in the long lane, so it's going to be a 4v5 fight if this is one your best buds look to take. Tier 1 tower down to 25% HP. Gamma rotating his way through. Big ultimate down. It's the start of a good fight for your best buds. And Elevate make their way into the chalk zone as your best buds find themselves a nice turnaround kill on the mid lane tower stays alive.
And just being able to burn down Rinjaru, of all people, that's going to be worthwhile for them. Level 13, a little bit of an advantage, heavy advantage over Griff. Stops him from farming for a little bit, now opens up this Gold Fury, and no one from Elevate's over here. They're going to instead try to get the Pyromancer just to have something to pull back.
That is the largest lead now that we will see. When Doug hovered the graphs a moment ago, it was still 54, so pretty much there. In the XP department, but 300, 400, 500 gold is the largest we've seen here in this game, so incredibly close. But it's your best buds kind of winning the most recent engagement there, and a lot of it, Gore. We had some questions around this chalk, but the big roundabout flank bought the opening kill there, and then ultimately the Fury a few moments later.
And I'm gonna tell you, so just pure ultimate-wise, there's not much you can say about Chalk's ult that is negative, because it's a giant AoE knock-up and silence. Like, everything like about that screams great for a team fight. And yeah, if you're looking at what Cerberus is going to be able to do, honestly, if you're looking at, in my mind, like Fear No Evil, these giant team fight disruptors, if Gamma does, if all he does this game is walk into the backline, ult, and die, it's still going to be worthwhile because it stops Rinjaru, Blugan, Spreen, and Shia from having a huge impact because of how large that circle is. Worst case scenario, you only get Rinjaru and Blugan, and that's still fine.
Well, it's time to check in on the long lane, and Griff is doing just fine, despite being a couple of levels down earlier on. Goodbye to Rinjaru, and Crimson was there just for the assist. I think Griff might have been okay to get the solo kill anyway. But we've reached that pivot point, Gore, where an early 2-level lead might not mean much anymore. There's still a fight going on in the mid lane, though, as Heed is rotated through as well. Enninster being burned away. Ultimate used by Heed deep in the back line. We'll have to check in on that engagement in just a second. Aquarius taken down. Spreen will get the kill on that one. Blugan has used the ultimate as well. But somehow, actually, Enninster stays alive. That opens up the door for Heed to rotate back to the other side of this one. So it's a 1 for none as Elevate find a pick.
Damage numbers are going to just be in favor of your best buds as the game goes on. Having 2 warriors is going to kind of incline them that way. The problem I see coming forward is the fact that Elevate, especially with Double Guardian, are going to be tankier. Now, maybe you're not going to see some sick plays from Heed and Shia, which, honestly, that's saying, like, if they come in and just do the worst they can, maybe they're not making something that's turnaround worthy. But when it comes down to sieging or fighting in an objective, 2 Guardian health bars to work with, both of which having just enough tank on them to make sure they can withstand it, it's going to be solid for Elevate, and I think that's a big thing for best buds to overcome here. A lot of it's going to be dependent on how Aquarius starts to kind of pick it up. We saw a stellar Hercules game. This Achilles needs to kind of stand up to that. I mean, it has to withhold all of that. It's really going to be good in picking one-on-ones or maybe setting up kills for Andy or Griff. But it has to stay alive in those processes too. Otherwise, he has to make sure his life is worth 2 every time because, you know, he's still a Guardian, but you lose so much because he's Achilles if he goes down versus having, you know, Ymir get burned down early on or having something like a Terra get burned down here for Elevate. I think it is almost more worthwhile to kill off Enninster or Aquarius because it just slows down your best butts.
It's a good Aegis there from Blugan. Almost caught the full rotation from Enninster on the Scylla. Yet again, Gamma has found another flank around the backside. Blugan is going to use the ultimate to take to the skies and stay alive. So when we talk about self-peel potential, that's what Blugan showcases for us there. And now we've, you know, I think kind of reached the point, Gore, we're talking about Aquarius, where it's no longer how will this Achilles look as a support. It's just what kind of value can an Achilles bring to these games in general. Obviously, as the Thebes, so a little bit more support mindset there in his builds. Maybe realistically in these fights, you're going to want to hit a good shell, but I think that execute is going to really be pulling a lot of the weight for what Aquarius can provide.
Yeah, the bonus of having 2 Guardians again for Elevate is tankiness. The downside is there's an execute on the other side that just waits for you to get within a certain threshold. And honestly, if they do it well, your best buds might be able to time both of them that low so he can get the double and maybe even triple execute down. Unfortunately for Aquarius right there, it does miss the stun onto Shia. And I think showcasing where, again, he can be strong, where he can maybe be a little bit weak. But there's a lot of follow-up, man. The minute he hits one of his abilities, if he gets a stun, or if he's able to follow up Scylla's damage with an execute, it's going to be huge. It's just that setup right now that is going to take a little bit of time to get going.
Well, she is going to dodge the crush, but Aquarius won't be able to dodge the stun there. Spreen was looking at him, but now it's Heed that's going to be burning away at the support Achilles. Bluegun uses that ultimate a bit early here, so if there's a fight kind of looming large, which maybe it looks like there's not, your best buds, we're going to have that advantage. The Fury is going to pop right back, and it's the Primal Fury this time around, and really it's Elevate with the more aggressive positioning.
I mean, maybe try and pull this, but there's enough members from your best buds around that I don't feel confident trying to pull a Fury without losing a fight. But you do have Heed, and I think, again, Heed is just a game changer to me. Prot Shred that comes down, reduced healing that comes down, good AoE abilities, a nice stun that's, albeit very difficult to hit, but still good if you can connect it. I think the damage that Heed is going to bring as well just makes him solid in this Cerberus role. It's just applying it at this point, right? Getting to someone like Griff, trying to shut him down, getting to someone like Andinster, trying to lock him down. Both of them have CC immune ults that are very safe. They both have beads. They both have Aegis. They're going to be very difficult to kill if you're not super coordinated to dive in and just eliminate one of them at a time.
Yeah, coordination's going to be key here, really for both teams. Heed, actually catches the full rotation. So that's a good strength check, I guess, up to this point for Andinster, as the Deso, Divine Ruin, Polynomicon once more on this Scylla. Unable to fully kill off Heat, though, despite the complete rotation. Shia dashes through, gets the ultimate down right around the Primal Fury, but Crimson has other things in mind. The Fury goes down in the meantime. Your best buds lock it there. Gamma's found a double silence. Crimson, no more bat out of hell, but still has the blink. Looks like maybe full strength here for both teams, but it's a blink back through instead from Spreen, looking for the kill. Heat taken low, not able to get into the ultimate in time, and Griff will find the kill.
Everybody on your best buds wanted that kill so much that 2 ults were used at once to try and lock him down, and they were at least able to find him. And I think it's big for them overall. Again, just finding that, you get the Fury, which is going to make the Fire Giant a little bit easier, and honestly, so much easier that they're even thinking about starting it up. I mean, at least Gamma is over here doing so. Griff might just be looking for a fight.
Oh, my goodness. Shia stuck his neck into the wrong neck of the woods there, and that's the FG pit. So no more Terra. Couple of ultimates now coming back. I'm a monster for some secure if need be. Spreen hovering close by, but we saw what your best buds were able to do to Spreen's teammate just a moment ago. So it looks like this one likely will be free, and your best buds doing a great job of zoning out. Now maybe the biggest swing in the game.
And I think once Cerberus goes down, I had mentioned how the tanks are going to help Elevate stay afloat here. You lose one, then Shia goes in, you lose the other. Spreen, Bluegun, Rinjaru not tanky enough to run into the Fire Giant pit, even to try and steal there, even though they have some good burst. And it's just too much once again to deal with, specifically Freya's damage output, Gamma's ability to secure, Andinster's ability to secure. There's just a lot in favor of your best buds, I think, going into a Fire Giant fight. So, unfortunately for Elevate now, backs against the wall, much closer in terms of kills this time than last time, but the gold difference feels about the same overall. Your best buds are just slowly pulling ahead. Last time Elevate were able to get that Fire Giant first and at least equalize a little bit. Now, I think your best buds can take this lead and expand on it much, much harder.
Yep. Gore, I'm curious, and this is a total aside. I wonder how much communication goes on between Andinster and Aquarius in getting resets for both of their ultimates. Like, I wonder if there's a moment where Aquarius says, no, you don't get this kill, I need to reset my ultimate, or vice versa, or if everyone on the team is just going to kind of be fighting over... You mentioning that everyone on your best buds wanted a kill a few moments ago kind of made me start thinking about that. Realistically, do you think that plays into it at all?
I don't know that you can convince me.
Not,
like,
right?
I think the execute from Aquarius, I think it'd be one of those things that I don't know if I could argue with a world champion about where their damage is going. Like, you know what? Me as a support, yeah, I want these executes, but that's a Scylla, and also it's Andenster. If I try to say no, let me get the kill, it's not gonna go well for us.
Yeah, it's no longer you know, the Aquarius. What was the team name? The Aquarius Man.
Aquaman and the Waves.
Yeah, Aquaman and the Waves.
It sounds like a band,
dude.
I love it.
It does, doesn't it? That's what I was thinking. But Aquaman and the Waves is not going to happen if Aquarius takes away one of Andenster's resets there. The Fire Giant play has worked out, though, relatively well here for your best buds. They knocked down both towers, or the remaining tower, rather, there in the mid lane. They've ballooned about 3,000 gold into the advantage here, and it could get worse for Blugan, not able to get up to the ultimate, and Gamma will grab a kill.
You know what? I think I said this at some point during the second phase as well. I'm just going to stop second-guessing Gamma sometimes. Like, I feel like Gamma plays what Gamma wants, and no matter what, Gamma's happy with it. And honestly, that's all that matters at the end of the day. If they win with something that doesn't seem orthodox, then it is A-okay, at least in my book, because, hey, you prove that you can make it work, and I think that's where this chalk is falling right now. 2, 1, and 3, good amount of damage that's coming out of him there onto Blugan. It's helping in the fights.
Shia has gone in, but nobody else from Elevate is there to respond. Execute just shy for Aquarius, so he won't find the reset on his own. No competition with his mid laner there. Won't be able to find it himself. Stunned down from Renjaru. That's going to be the kill onto the Your Best Bud support. Big ultimate from Heed, countered out by Griff as the Valkyrie's discretion used there as well. Silence onto Spreen, but able to walk away just fine. Burning away is Gamma in the backline alone. Chalk, I don't think it saves himself from this one. Phoenix goes down, Gormizer, but Your Best Buds have lost too.
Honestly, I think, too, that you can afford to lose. If you lose someone like Andenster, if you lose Griff, it becomes a different story because you can't do much with them afterward. And admittedly, you only have 20 seconds left on Fire Giant, so maybe you're not going to be able to do much with them here at all. But having your carries readily available does turn things around. And again, I think Andenster specifically thwarts things like a Fury from being stolen out from underneath them as they can come through and just try to swipe 1 or 2 away in terms of objectives from Elevate.
Elevate, look at this confidence from them. No real ward coverage from Your Best Buds. I guess unfortunate. I mean, you want to talk about all the Furies you could have gotten here if you're Elevate. You know, Oni might have been the ideal one, but Primal will be nice later on for maybe some objective fighting.
Well, good news for Elevate. If in 5 minutes the exact same scenario crops up where they defend a Phoenix, or I guess they didn't even successfully defend a Phoenix, they thwart Your Best Buds from being able to get too aggressive, and they find it. The next one is an Oni Fury, which will be much more helpful for them. But now knowing that they have at least one Primal Fury under their belt means that they could potentially come in, have a little bit more success trying to steal away a Fire Giant. And that's going to come to play here. You can already see Your Best Buds looking to group up over there and try to set themselves up at least for this Fire Giant. Stealing buffs, pushing up waves, making sure they have some pressure over there in mid as well as right. It's going to make it much more awkward for Elevate to defend, especially if right now Your Best Buds just go for a tower.
And they are going for that tower. It's tier 2 in the short lane. We knocked down by Your Best Buds. Maybe it's you know, less of a, you know, great Elevate got Primal and more Your Best Buds was not able to get Primal and do this Fire Giant that much quicker. Little A, little B maybe. We'll have to see how it plays out though, as Your Best Buds are going to position themselves on the opposite side of the FG pit from their own side of the map. Very cautious, and I think smart here from Elevate, Gore. You don't want to stick your neck out too far, as we saw what happened to Shia last time.
Especially because that was, I mean, even mostly full build Terra getting eviscerated there between 5 members. Although she has definitely been shrugging off, it feels like Andenster's damage a little bit more often now, and I think it's just going to be difficult to burn through them, which is why it would have been helpful to start up and burn potentially a Fire Giant. Gamma, though, pulling 2 attention onto himself, that's going to open up the Fire Giant pretty easily for his team.
Here's your chance to 2v1 Gamma. He's just going to get out alive. Can't say the same, though, for Crimson. Elevate have found the opening kill in this engagement around the FG pit. Can you push that advantage any further. Spreen sure wants to. Shia in execute threshold. Annenster taken down. Spreen suddenly on a killing spree. Double knock-up in the ult from Heed. Renjaru, he's a killing spree as well. Aquarius, the last line of defense underneath this tier 2 tower. The ultimate is going to use to disengage, but Spreen and Heed are going to run him down. Spreen finishes off the kill, and it's a 4-kill swing for Elevate.
But fire minions are pulling him away. Otherwise, you might be able to get a Phoenix here.
What?
But Gamma going to be able to pull one back in his name. Blugan is starting this fight at half health. I do not know if I can endorse that, especially with how much damage Gamma's putting out. I mean, they win this fight swimmingly, but they can't do anything with it.
Who's got the chalk? Gamma's got the chalk. Andy's got 2 kills. Suddenly, the Elevator are going to make some, revenge maybe for the rest of their team. It's finally the deicide for Elevate. Crimson just now back off of respawn. Gamma at 4-3-3. Turned around a couple of kills there. I guess all things considered, Gora, I mean, it was fantastic for Elevate. They do end up getting the full-on deicide. But how important is that for Gamma to find a couple of kills?
I mean, not only huge for them to turn it around, it is unfortunate because he's like 30 seconds staggered from the rest of his team's respawn, so your best bud's fighting in a 4v5 or defending in a 4v5 for the next little bit. But not only does he get 2 huge kills, which I think exacerbates the problem that Elevate had, but Elevate, I mean, they come in, they win this fight, but fire minions are pouring into the base, so they can't do Fire Giant, they can't tank a tier 2, they can't go and try to push a Phoenix, they have to back. And then you lose 2 members, right? Like, it's like you already have this list of problems you're trying to deal with, and now 2 of you are dead on top of it, so you have to full-on retreat. And so in a weird way, they lose the fight as your best buds, but they also win the fight as your best buds because everything they were fighting for to begin with is still up and available for them.
Still around, right. And that Primal Fury could have really come out to play for Elevate there if they started up the Fire Giant, had they seen an opening for themselves, but not to be. 9 seconds left until the enhanced FG starts up, but Elevate won't try to whittle it down first, instead just waiting to see where Elevate maybe start to position themselves. Elevate definitely know your best buds are hanging over here. It's going to be a tough fight though, Gore, especially if Annenster saves a lot of his burst damage. Elevate's almost got to just win the fight and hope that your best buds don't get this Fire Giant within execute threshold.
It's getting it low that's going to be the difficulty. I think for either team, you have a lot of DPS on either side, but like you said, once Annenster can just ult it or use Crush on it, Gamma comes in, secures it, anybody on the side of your best buds that chooses to, it's going to make it more difficult for Elevate to withstand themselves. They also have to be careful because one misstep, especially with Aquarius hanging around, you're stunned, and within seconds you're dead between Annenster and Griff. And they're hanging around as a 3-man pack, so you know they're looking for the stun setup combo, with Crimson being able to come in and either sweep the backline or cause a distraction. Right. Elevate are just timid. They know the water's hot, and they don't want to dip their toes in.
Well, here's an important 1v1. Gamma uses the ultimate, but Spreen does as well. Fire Giant started up. And I'm a Monster, Mirrodin Crush combo from Annenster will secure and then some a Fire Giant if it comes within that threshold, which is sort of my thinking on needing to finish off a kill. And speaking of it, Blugan has executed Griff, no Freya, for the next minute. Big opening kill here from Elevate, pulled back in is Aquarius, stunned down is the Achilles, bat out of hell for Crimson. He's on the chase here. Can he find the final tick on his Spreen? He sure can, but he's put himself right into the waiting arms of Renjaru and Blugan. Not enough sustain. It's a double kill for the Uller, and Elevate continues to claw their way back into the game.
Unfortunately, the 2 people that are left alive here, yeah, maybe 1 ult down for Andy, but Gamma's still around, healthy. Andy's still around with Crush available for him. This Fire Giant isn't guaranteed, even though you have the numbers advantage. You need to be ready, and that's what Heed is trying to do. He wants to go for the zone, but they're already too close.
Andy around the backside is going to have to sentinel his way away. Blugan taken low. Look at what Gamma's doing here in a 3v1. Not able to find the kill, but he's delayed the Fire Giant. Heed has run down Annenster. Full-blown deicide once more. And this should be the FG for Elevate.
I like what Andy was doing in terms of pulling Heat away. Gamma just went in too soon. Maybe thought he could get the kill a little bit easier. Blugan incredibly low, but alive, and that's what matters most. That Fire Giant now enhanced going their way. Unfortunate for Spreen that it's not going to be there But Rinjaru having it means that all of those towers should be quaking in the tower equivalent of boots. And the same thing, I think, for Blugan as well. The amount of sustain they're going to have, yeah, their foundations should be shaking and quaking right now with fear. Because it's just going to be so easy for Elevate to at least burn through the tier 2s that are up. And then that gold disparity that has already dissipated to just under 2,000 here, it's going to swing in favor of Elevate and put them in potential, like a contention to win this game, even though they've felt kind of like they were out of it, at least for the first 20 minutes.
And, you know, Elevate now, not only back in the game, but arguably in control with the Fire Giant, now the Oni Fury pushing in. I don't even think it's really all that arguable. I think Elevate are in control here of this game. A 4 gold lead for your best buds is disappearing very quickly as Elevate are going to make their way over to this tier 2 tower side. And really the kill lead swings. There's 2 deicides in a row, so you talk about an 8-kill swing plus or minus a couple thanks to Gamma pulling 2 kills back. But your best buds have been in control of this game since the start, but a lot slower of a pace from what we saw in Game 1, Gore. I'm not sure they pushed their advantage when they really had it.
I think that's the biggest thing for your best buds was what did you do with the control you had? They did get that left Phoenix that one time, but it cost them 2 lives to get that done. And ultimately it did save them because they had that Phoenix. The next team fight, when they got completely wiped, it delayed everything. But now they haven't been able to swing too much. They've been maybe overconfident is the only word I can think to use in terms of what they could accomplish against Elevate because of how the first few minutes of the game have been going, or the first 20 minutes, let's even say. And now they're standing under their Phoenix hoping to defend. Freya, really good at stopping people from getting aggressive. You whoop them, then you kill them when they land. Gamma, I think, again, the silence is going to be good. Andenser is going to do enough damage to ward you off. But it's whether or not you can do that on all 3 of these Phoenixes with the split they have that's going to matter.
Blugan is going to use his ultimate. It's the 1v1 that we continue to see where Gamma and Spreen do battle, both at half HP, but Spreen left on the right side, Phoenix alone here. That axe chipping away just a little bit more damage, but here comes Elevate on the left-hand side. Andenster walked at by Heat. No more mid laner for your best buds. No left side Phoenix either. 4 members left defending for the next minute. Cautious, calculated are Elevate as they pull back.
Look, I'm not trying to incite violence here, but I will say, what I said about Heed and Gamma early on is coming to fruition, right? Gamma was able to pull back 2 kills. He's done a phenomenal job as this Chalk, but he's 4-4-4. There's only so much you can do. Heed literally ran at Andenser, and nobody could stop this man, and he gets the kill. That's going to be the difference the Cerberus is bringing versus that Chalk right now.
Well, it's the Phoenix playing 5th man for the next 25 seconds while Andenster watches from the sidelines. Your best buds still nursing a sort of dwindling base here. Mid lane, right lane Phoenix is both still around. Elevate opting for a full 5-man mid, depending on where Spreen chooses to go. Won't usher in the fire minions on the left-hand side. Instead, just sort of hangs out to the left. 30 seconds remaining on the Fire Giant buff, and then the FG will respawn about a minute after that. The time is now for Elevate if you want to have this 4v5 fight. Up goes Blugan. Look at the damage that he was able to do there. Some shielding provided by Aquarius. Gamma finds his way to the back, but finds nothing but death on the other side. Crimson, bat out of hell, waiting for the Aegis to wear out, and he's been able to do that. Aquarius looking for the execute, but Crimson has got himself a double kill. Elevate, they thought they had the advantage. They thought they had a moment, but instead, it's your best buds pulling back a few kills, but look at this. The kills on the back end, those are going for Elevate. It's a 2 for 2 so far, with Aquarius now being looked at by Elevate. Andenster back off of the respawn. Crush into the ultimate. Won't result in any kills, and Elevate have backpedaled enough to buy themselves a small win.
And unfortunately, your best buds, they have to stay back to defend. There's fire minions coming in from left side, so they have to be careful. Andenser, maybe more so than what you're seeing. Griff is fine. He's in base. So Andy just has to hang around right now. Well played, though. I've been giving him trouble, and I'm going to give him the shout-out. Gamma, I think, is the reason that fight is able to get turned around as easily, because he does what he does. He holds W, goes into the back line, and just does whatever he can to disrupt them. Unfortunately for Gamma, he gives his life, whereas he hasn't. So he 4-5-5, only gets 1 assist, gets 1 death off of that. But I think one of the biggest factors in making sure things were thwarted. It was also weird ult timing. Elevate had to essentially wait for Andenser to respawn before they could jump back in because their ults weren't available there. And so it gave your best buds that ability to retaliate in true full force. which, maybe only results in an equal fight for them, but being able to bump off a team from getting a second Phoenix 1, but also that has an enhanced Fire Giant is a huge win for Your Best Buds, just to stay alive, which right now they're on life support.
All things considered, we're even here at this point, except base-wise, as you point out. Fire minions still on the left-hand side with the enhanced Fire Giant up. So it's going to be Gamma rotating over, has the upgraded teleport to get himself back into the fight, and noticing some similarities, Goremizer, between Gamma and Crimson, both Arondites, both Brawlers Beatsticks, and both Heartseekers, and some sort of lifesteal item as well. So looks like the jungler and the solo laner from Your Best Buds have similar goals in mind at the end of the day.
Dude, Shock can do some damage, and I think what we're seeing here is going to enable that even more. It feels like Gamma's mindset is on one thing and one thing alone, and, well, while he might be over there farming, a lot of it is, hey, I can kill Blugan. That's all that matters, dude. If I can get back there and kill Blugan or cause someone else to kill Blugan, then that's a win for us. Blugan's ult, specifically in that last fight, did a lot of damage spread around the members of Your Best Buds. So being able to shut down what Nuwa brings to the table is going to make it a lot easier for YBB.
What's important here, 50% remaining on the enhanced Fire Giant. Gamma waiting for the moment to move in. That's the double silence.
There it is.
And my god, Renjaru has to burn both of his actives to get out alive. No execute there, but no Hunter available for Elevate until Renjaru is able to go back to base and come back into the engagement. How fast do Your Best Buds want to push this? The answer is not very, but Gore burning both Aegis and beads off of Renjaru, massive for the next fight.
I thought it was going to end up resulting in a little more. I mean, at that point, you know you have a 4v5. Maybe you want to jump in and get aggressive, but it feels timid. I mean, at this point, they have to worry about left lane. There's still fire minions that are pushing down. You can see Aquarius going over there. If Gamma can get something like that again here, it's going to be big, but his ult, it still has a little bit of time on it.
Gore Renjaru was able to sustain just a little bit, but he never went back to base. I mean, hovering right around that half HP. Won't matter much like right now in this moment, but tanking up that Fire Giant, he was in that yellow to green threshold back and forth continuously, and after what Gamma was able to do previously, now with Gamma's full kit available again, 10% HP could make all of the difference. We kind of talk about the solo lane builds, Gore. I think I really like what Heat has gone for here as well. The ability to melt down Gem of ISO, paying off onto Gamma is going to slow him down.
Jeez.
But Crimson has found his way onto Blugan, and if you blinked, you missed what happened to the Elevate mid laner. Same goes for their Hunter as well. It's a double kill for Crimson. Shia moves his way back in. Spreen is there. Bye-bye jungler and solo laner for one side. See you later, the mid laner and Hunter for the other.
2 for 2, but ultimately I want to say mid laner Hunter taken off the board much better for Your Best Buds to fight this, because now look what's going to happen to Shia. Luckily able to disengage there, but the stun's up. Griff is coming into the fight as well. Unless Heed gets a really good rotation into this is looking good for YBB.
Oh, and he got it, Goremizer. Spreen is going to melt down Annenster, Griff, and Aquarius. A bit out of sorts with where they want to rotate their way through here. Off to the side, Griff swinging away some good damage. Aquarius looking for the execute, but Griff will get it done with the Valkyrie's discretion. Down he goes, though, and Heed perfectly timed onto the ultimate. The dash away from Aquarius. It's a big 2v1 he's got on his way here. It's not a question of if he can get a kill, but can he survive? Neither dash still around, and looks like we're barreling our way towards another deicide here, Goremizer, for Elevate. They've had 3 to get themselves back into this game. It's really a race against the respawn for Gamma. 4 seconds left. This is the most intense deicide of all time. The blink away saves it, so no deicide. Maybe they get the kill nonetheless, and there it is. The sort of pseudo deicide it is, Goremizer, but Elevate continue to pull these wins out.
Man, 70 seconds there for Aquarius. I think he does a great job of delaying Elevate, but now the respawns are up for them. You've got Crimson, you've got Gamma. They did a lot of work just a second ago in order to get that 2v2, but they might not be able to do that same kind of miracle play again. It's not going to stop them from trying, though. This Fire Giant's getting half health, maybe a little bit lower now. Crimson's got eyes on him.
Beads and Aegis just back up from Renjaru as well. Bat out of hell will disengage the fight, but goodbye to Gamma. The mindset again was the same between the solo laner and the jungler, but Gamma ends up falling forward. Enhanced Fire Giant, but low health bars on a few members of Elevate. Crimson, what are you thinking? What am I thinking? He dashes in, gets himself a kill onto Renjaru, And for maybe the 6th or 7th time, the Enhanced Fire Giant will be reset.
Well, Andenster has been spotted now, and they know where he is because they saw him. I'm going to go ahead, and maybe I'm putting myself on a thin branch. It might break under the weight I'm about to put onto it, but if Aquarius and Gamma were playing something a little more true to form, at least in terms of meta, I think this game would be over. I think your best buds are like making better plays. I think it literally is coming down to the fact that there's only so much they can do as the gods they are, especially when you're running in, 2v4. That's a completely different point, though. That I think it's just slowing them down enough that it's making it stronger for Elevate to make their case here, but every single one of these engagements, Elevate are having to commit so much and force so much in order to get these kills onto Gamma, onto Crimson. And Gamma and Crimson are literally throwing themselves onto your sword. Like, it shouldn't be a hard kill.
Right.
But the fact that they're able to keep it going like this, it gives me more hope for your best buds winning this game than it does for Elevate, even though Elevate, I mean, kills-wise, gold-wise, control of the map-wise, are winning this game right now.
I don't think we can understate either. I mean, kind of the continued point from that is that Renjaru and Blugan have just been jumped on continuously. That's really opened the door for Spreen to have a fantastic performance here on this Nemesis.
Oh, yeah.
And I think he's done so 10, 1, and 8 so far on the Nemesis. Kind of the counter of what Crimson and Gamma want to do. Spreen has found his way into the back line and done some good damage in the meantime there as well. Heed, though, is going to get picked off early on here. Just overextends a little bit. Enhanced Fire Giant reset again. Elevate had started it up. Nobody wants a full 5v5 fight going around this Fire Giant.
I don't know if you can hear it, but somewhere in the distance, your best buds are all screaming, finally, because they've been trying to kill Heat for so long. This Cerberus has been so difficult to get rid of. And honestly, he's been the one keeping this game afloat for Elevate. Every single time, it's what can Spreen or Heat do. Now that at least one of those is gone, I don't know if Spreen's going to be able to be the one to pull this back. This Fire Giant's already at half. This is looking good for your best buds.
We're about to crest the 45-minute mark. It's going to take a miracle from Elevate to steal this one away. Can they find it? No, they can't. Your best buds has gotten the kill. Crimson fighting with Renjaru on the back line. Beats Aegis just back up from the Uller as he leaps away. Gamma right there waiting with him as well. Blugan absolutely chugged down. Down goes the Elevate mid laner. Renjaru takes one with him. Aquarius looking for the execute, but shield will fall nonetheless. It's down to Spreen, and I think your best buds have finally finished off the game.
It all comes down to getting that first kill onto Heat. I think this Cerberus has been slowing them down so much because he's been able to get back there and deal with Andenster and Griff so consistently. But he's going to be respawning here, Dave. It's not necessarily fully over. I think having the Fire Giant, though, and of course 45 minutes in, it looks like they're going to have the damage.
Yeah, Griff is doing plenty. Spreen though gets a return kill, but I'm a monster. Will seal the fate of Elevate in this one. I don't think we can understate how well Elevate was able to kind of keep themselves, not only in Game 1, but in Game 2 here specifically, both kind of looking over at a certain point. So I think maybe that raises some questions around this Your Best Bud squad, maybe some trouble looming here in Phase 3 of the SEC, finishing out these games. But they do get the 2-0 nonetheless, so a fantastic performance there from them.
Well, I'm going to say stealing a mentality that Zap had said yesterday in a post-game interview, but being able to play things that aren't necessarily meta and showcase that you can win with them and see what they can do in a game this competitive is going to be big for you, and I think that's exactly what Gamma was trying to do. It's hard to argue when he was 1,000 damage, not even a full 1,000, 500 damage off of Blugan's damage. That's a new Wa that is getting free damage every time she ults. It's kind of insane that this Chalk worked out as well as it did. Like, I want to give it trouble, but Gamma played it well.
Gora, I still think we're fair to have our concerns. You know, I think if a Chalk gets locked in, now we maybe have a little bit more data to say, all right, here's how and maybe why this can work. I mean, you look at a Nuwa, outside of her ultimate, unable to kind of self-escape from these fights, and continuously Blugan was just being walked on. The Bat Out of Hell, another great example of that. So the fact that Blugan was able to do that much damage despite being looked at by Crimson and Gamma continuously, I think is a great boon to kind of his cause here in this one. But at the end of the day, you know, it was really this Camazotz and the Chalk that did most of the running down. I think Griff at the end of the day had, I think, 18,000 damage or so in a 45-minute game. Certainly not easy for him when a lot of what Elevate were doing was running down him with Heed and Spreen as well. But all things considered, I think your best buds have got to be happy with the 2-0.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that second game proved a level of tenacity for them as well going forward, showcasing that you can pick up some things that are a little weird, and there's definitely still competition that's going to be brought to them because of it. But obviously, they have the talent behind them to make those things work. Again, I think if you replace that shock with something that's a little more in meta, then you steamroll them because of the way you're playing. But the fact that Gamma could make Chalk, of all things, look that good, I think is a testament to their skill, and I'm excited to see what they're going to be able to do in the future, knowing that that's the style of play they're bringing.
As the schedule dictates there, still some great SCC games to continue on later today after the SPL. So a lot to look forward to there in that regard. And speaking of the SPL, ladies and gentlemen, just 21 minutes away before we wrap up the second week in Phase 2 of the SPL. So thanks so much for watching the SCC. Stick around, SPL in 20 minutes.